I believe one of the traps that we fall into as marketers is that we are constantly trying to come up with big ideas and big insights and fresh new ideas and insights or things that we haven't worked on before. And I think that's certainly one way of doing it, but I think it can be fairly inefficient. The reality is that there are only a few variables that get people to convert, right? My whole strategy has always been to kind of focus on them. So let's look at an example. Let's say I'm working on this product page. This is the Women's Athens. It's got tons of reviews, so I know that they have high transaction volume, which is the reason why I picked this page in the first place. And when you look at this page, there are so many different things you can kind of think about. You can think about adding new video content. You can kind of think about adding more lifestyle images. These elements aren't clickable. You can think about making them clickable. You can focus on maybe driving more people to this section. And then the social proof, maybe you can kind of increase the browse rate for the social proof, right? Because if people are not browsing it, again, there are lots of things that you can do. So I want to make a point over here. The point is that when I'm looking at a page, I first spend the first 15 minutes, just 15 minutes. You don't have to spend hours strategizing on stuff. I spend just 15 minutes digesting the page and really kind of making some bets on what I think are the core elements, what I call the centers of gravity of this page. And so I identified four things, and I'll just tell you what they are. So the first one, there are four details that I thought really mattered. So these guys have a bunch of different shoes. So if you actually go back to women's, um, if you look at shop all, right, they have all of these different styles. They have lots and lots and lots of styles, right? And one of the things that I want to do is that I want to confirm to the visitor that she or he has indeed found the right page. Now, if this is already their bestseller, and I know it's their bestseller because it says, our forever fave, and just looking at the reviews, I can triangulate that. So I said one of the things that we want to do is we want to communicate to them that they've discovered the bestseller. Now let's forget about the solution. We're just strategically at this point identifying the things that we want to communicate. The other thing that's very obvious to me is that they have 10,000 reviews, which is not a trivial number. The thing is that it's referenced over here, but and we'll get into that as well. So that's something I want to make sure people are noticing. Um, one of the things I speculated, this is known as a creative guess. I don't do research, so I just kind of like put my hat on and I say, okay, I'm just going to speculate. The core selling proposition for this shoe is that you don't have to lace it up. It's laced up, but as you can see in this loop, you can like literally just like slide your foot in, and that's the technology that they've developed. Now, I'm speculating that they've developed this technology because they saw user behavior, because I actually fall in this bucket where my wife hates this. I never untie my shoes. I keep the laces on, and then I just figure out a way to slide my feet in. And when I buy new shoes, it's hard because I gotta like squeeze it in pretty hard. But eventually, they expand out, and it's easier to kind of slide my feet in. I literally have this is my default behavior. So my speculation is that a lot of the people that are buying the shoe actually already do this with their shoes. It's just that they don't have a shoe that's actually designed for this, because the problem is what they've done is they've got this very good spring mechanism over here, whereas my regular shoes don't have this. So over time I'm just crushing this more and more, and it's kind of losing its support. And I think that's what these guys have solved. So this is default behavior that the consumer already has, and I'm assuming that's the only reason they'd buy it. I mean, people who like to lace up their shoes and don't like to do slide their shoes in, why would they buy this? I would say that would be the minority. Most people that are buying this are already expressing this behavior with their non with their shoes that aren't designed for this behavior. So this is a very obvious insight for me. Um, and I typically pull stuff out of my hat. So this is one of those things. Then I wanted to kind of one of the questions I had is I'm always paying attention to my negative feelings, and one of my negative feelings was, well, this seems kind of flimsy. Like I just don't think it's going to hold up. I mean, that's the reason why I wouldn't buy it. I would be like, this is a gimmick. I don't think it's going to hold up. So how do I counter that? So I wanted to kind of have content that says why we created this and how it's an engineering challenge, and this is why it didn't exist earlier. Because One of the things I'm thinking is that, well, why doesn't Nike have this? Why don't there are hundreds of shoe brands? Why haven't I seen this before? And if you can kind of really triangulate around that idea and communicate that, then you actually are demonstrating expertise. Now, I want to make a broader point here. So these are the four ideas that I identified. These are the four things that I want to focus on. Now, my entire conversion optimization, the next 10 tests need to be focused around these four ideas. I think we make the mistake of like constantly jumping to new ideas, looking at, we run an experiment, for example, and we say, oh, this really didn't move the needle, so let's just kind of focus on something else. Well, maybe the test was not designed appropriately. And more importantly, I think four is a really good tight number of centers of gravity for you to like actually spend months kind of optimizing and working on. I can think of 100 different ideas that are based on these thematically, that are based on these things. So I'll show you one thing. Like they said, forever fave, to kind of like communicate to the buyer that they've reached the right place. I've combined this with the reviews thing because point number two was that the reviews. I've literally just updated the copy to say this is our best-selling women's shoe. Again, confirming it's women's shoe. It is the women's shoe page as evidence from 10,000 reviews. And when you click on this, it scrolls you down to the review section. This is crappy copy. I can come up with 10 different improvements on this. And so just keep on working on it. But the point of this video is to say identify your centers of gravity and then don't deviate from them. There's gold here. We're just not patient enough.